dice are loaded. Everybody rolls with their fingers crossed. Everybody knows the war is over. Everybody knows the good guys lost. Everybody knows the fight.
All right, my babies. Welcome to another exciting episode of So Be It. I'm your host, Cyrus, here to titillate your audio holes one episode at a time. And as always, the views and expressions on So Be It do not reflect those of YouTube. Any YouTube channel, any YouTube radio station, any kind of internet radio station, or terrestrial radio station for that matter. However, they do reflect those of the haterade drinking Chiba monkeys. And now, my babies, the one you guys have all been waiting for. This is the Countdown to Destruction episode that I've been beefing about all week. Got a lot of ground to cover, even more ground than the End of an Era Military School Saga episodes, part 1 and 2. So without further ado, let's hit it. So, all right. In order for me to tell you guys this line of events absolutely correctly, we need to start all the way back in the beginning in 2002. When the school actually came into being, long before most of my dearly listeners were born. Let's see here. So, by a great man, from my understanding, Dan Kennedy, was the principal of Sarasota High School at the time, and he came up with an idea to start a military-style school in Sarasota based on ones that he had seen in North Carolina and Virginia. Now, while searching for a facility to house the school, he ended up coming across an abandoned building in downtown Sarasota that had once been the home of St. Martha Catholic School, which, to the ordinary person would make sense because, St. Martha Church was just down the street, so hello. So Kennedy ended up buying the building, and the groundwork was laid for the high school to take shape. Now, from what I've learned the last several days, life at the high school was pretty good back then, when it first started up with Kennedy in command. He formed bonds with the students and the staff that showed with the mutual love that Kennedy had for his students and the love that the students had for him. And it wasn't just the students, though. It was the parents as well. He was the type of guy that everybody, looked to and was like, okay, this guy's legit. He's solid. We can trust in him and we can believe him and everything will be A-okay. So, despite that love, there were discipline measures for troubled kids that were exercised at the school. And, Kennedy, enforcing the whole military school background, it was like military punishments. You would do push-ups and you would run laps. And yeah, it was, if you did anything stupid, they would make you pay for it. Trust me, it was not a light thing. They would make you go through it. And Dan Kennedy was a very big believer in it. And it was something that was instilled in his students, despite the fact that he had bonds with them. And so it all coincided. It all just worked. It simply worked. And he drilled that into the kids. And it showed, and some people think, oh my God, making them, run laps, do push-ups, that's just barbaric. No. It's building them into a better person. It's what he believed in, and it's how he forged such a great, strong relationship with kids and parents over the years. So, eventually, some of that was done away with because of overly sensitive pricks who most likely believe babying people is the best solution. You guys can see pretty much how well that went over. So even though things appeared blissful in the start, like all things, it didn't really last forever. For those of you who do not know this, when you start a nonprofit organizations, which schools are included in this, you have to establish a board of directors. My understanding is that Kennedy complied with the requirement, but unfortunately for him, there were two individuals that had a distaste for the fearless leader that had chosen them to help run things. So all this was in 2002. School gets started. So we're going to kind of jump just a little bit here. I'll try to make it specific so that way you guys know where we are. But 2014 rolls around, and things start taking a downward turn for Kennedy. The two individuals on the board who were not happy with how he and had a strong dislike for him wanted him gone. They wanted him gone from the school. They weren't happy with him. So the board, in their infinite wisdom, forced his removal from the school and named, you guessed it, Bo Truckle as his successor. They gave Kennedy a bullshit title of CEO, which turned out to be absolutely nothing. It was a nothing, empty position just to get him out of the way so they could move forward with the plans that they wanted, never mind the collateral damage that would result from it. It was funny. One of the articles that I read that I found and dug up, it was basically saying that he was being moved to a inactive position in the school, but still vital. Yeah, right. So another article that said that the chairman of the board, the Crow, said that the process of transitioning from one leader to another was an intrinsically difficult situation, particularly when both parties remain active. There was a tendency for both leaders to think they knew better than the other, and that it was important to clearly define who was guiding the school. Two leaders is an impossible situation. You have to have one. You have to transition from one to another, and that's what this is really all about. Are you freaking kidding me, dude? Get a life. Another board member went on to say that this is not a punitive situation. The roles are changing. Life is changing. Dan created a wonderful school. Sometimes you need to protect that. And that's what this is doing. So let's stop and let's think about that for a second. You're protecting the school by forcing out its founding father, who is loved by everyone and their mother, just because two dipstick board members don't like him? Yeah, seems, makes sense. Seems legit. Sure. So it was reported that Kennedy was going to leave with a nearly $107,000 buyout. He was going to be paid for 18 weeks vacation, $44,547, as well as an additional 26 weeks of severance pay that equaled to around $62,433. Now, the school was also going to contribute $16,000 to his quote-unquote retirement, according to the agreement that was made with Kennedy and his board of directors. Now, the Crow was reported to have been saying that he deserved the money, having worked for the school for years and helping build it. Gee, you think? And for those of you who are like, well, that was nice of them. The school gave him a good payout. Don't be fooled now. If anything, this damn school has taught us nothing is what it seems. It was all hush, complete and utter hush money. And unfortunately for us, Kennedy would not be the only one who that would be somewhat forced upon and be given that to and offered, which I'll get into that here in a little bit. So the agreement was signed, also noted that the quote-unquote new leaders will need to lead without your influence or assistance unless requested by the board. And that was a direct quote that they sent to Kennedy that was put in the agreement to him. So they're giving him the hush money, and they're basically saying, okay, unless the board says so, you don't really have any influence. You can't say anything. You have the audacity to say that and force the founding father of the whole damn school to agree to that? I mean, honestly, if that's not the biggest load of horseshit I've ever heard in my life. The Crow went on to say, furthermore, that he did more for the school than any single person. He can be credited for the lion's share of what it is. He will always be recognized for that. That won't change. Well, if you have any shred of decency inside of you, you freaking A right it won't be. That won't ever change. I mean, talk about twisting the knife. I mean, come on. It's unknown to me who the two board members are, who are the ones that laid the groundwork for getting rid of Kennedy. I don't know. I'm not sure if the Crow, who, again, is the chairman of the whole board, is one of them. But, at the same damn time, he let it happen, and he didn't try to stop it from what I can tell. Being the so-called, quote-unquote, chairman of the board, you would think he'd have done something instead of, coming up with awkward start-of-term speeches that made about as much sense as wiping before you shit. I mean, this is ridiculous. He also made the comment that Kennedy's departure was an evolution for the school. Yeah, an evolution that would eventually end up taking it into a downward slope. I mean, during Kennedy's tenure, the school grew into the largest charter school in Sarasota County with slightly more than 1,000 students in attendance, with the school being rated an A school in 2012 and 2013, right at just about at the tail end of Kennedy's reign as the head honcho, the big cheese. Now, as far as I know, the school, as well as its middle school counterpart, is down to a C rating under Bo Truckle, despite her comments of, "We are not a C school." I don't know if the grade has fluctuated in the last year or so. I'm not really positive. I tried to find it, but nothing would come up. Nothing popped up. So, again, I'm not entirely positive. That was the last thing that I heard. So, something else that I found interesting was that the board operates the school. I'm pretty sure this isn't news to anybody, but the board operates the school while not being directly under the Sarasota County School Board. They're kind of like their own little separate entity. Now, again, I realize this isn't news to a lot of people, but it makes me think, how different or not things would be if the board had to answer to the county for everything. Like if the county was completely over them, and they had to go through the county to do all their decisions and so on and so forth. It just would really, really made me kind of wonder, how different things might go if that had been the case. Now, before Kennedy departed the school completely and he signed the final agreement, he submitted a letter of recommendation to a veterans organization in support of another teacher that was there, Jeffrey Daughtry. Now, he was a teacher who was let go from his math teaching job after this asshole of a kid planned it. Now, what happened was at the very end of that year, the year that Kennedy was ousted, this kid who always caused problems in his classes was sent out of the classroom as usual, and he ended up having another student meet him in that classroom. It was across the hall. Nobody was in there. And he planned to get himself busted and had planned on having this other kid, film it, and then they were going to put it all over social media, all over YouTube, whatever they could get their hands on, and just completely destroy this guy. And so the teacher's reaction was filmed, and he ended up setting the trap the next day, actually. And the teacher in question did react in a harsh manner. But from what I can tell from this, from this dipshit, he deserved it. So the teacher's reaction, of course, was filmed, and it was put all over the social media, and he ended up getting fired immediately. So it's kind of stemming from what I like to call the Carm syndrome. And I know the coach is probably laughing at that. The sidekick, too, if he's out there. Taking something and basically just turning it into an overdramatic shit show. That's basically what it is. And seeing as the high school was afraid of everything, including its own shadow, of course, they fired him immediately, and, shared revealed it just cascaded all over the place. Now, interesting part here. The Crow, or not the Crow, Kennedy appealed to the board to reinstate him so that he could resign quietly. And, of course, naturally, the Crow said that would be a mistake to do that and initially refused. But after, a lot of backlash and from outside sources, they went through with it as quietly as they could. Oh, shh, 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 shh. Now, all this took place right before the coach was hired there. And as fate would have it, this teacher was actually teacher of the year the previous year. So, it kind of just goes to show it doesn't really matter if you're a hero in the teaching community and the school. If you do one thing wrong and you make a mistake or don't, but you're accused of it, you basically get crucified for it with no chance of redemption whatsoever. You're just completely labeled, and no, that's it for you. You're pretty much on a list. So the kicker in all this, they called Kennedy's departure his quote unquote retirement. Just typical political bullshit. And funny enough, I actually found out something tonight. Graduation ceremony about 2 years ago. Speech was given by a student, and Dan Kennedy's name was mentioned in the speech, and everybody in the room started clapping, cheering. Everybody just went insane, and he got a complete standing ovation from the room. And that just goes to show you how much this guy was loved and appreciated by everybody. 3-4 years later, after this guy's departure, he's still getting ovations at graduation speeches. That's amazing. Just goes to show you how much love and support this dude had. And he was crushed. So let's see. We have a viewer listening who's questioning, what school is this about? Well, if you don't know, I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point. So shortly after all this stuff took place, the coach was hired by the high school, though it was kind of reluctantly. And because at the time that the coach was looking for a job and getting interviewed, he had what I like to call his Kurt Cobain due. For those of you who find it very hard to believe and have no idea what I'm talking about, Kurt Cobain was a musician. He had shoulder-length hair, and he had a pretty decent beard, from what I could tell. The coach was pretty much sporting that. It became his look for several years. And when he was brought before Bo Truckle, it was like, yeah, I don't know about this. I really don't. I don't know, because Major JC brought him in. And because he'd been hired as the basketball coach, and Major JC kind of made it like a joke when he said this, but he's like, so gonna get a haircut and shave up that face, bruh? And the coach realized that it was kind of like half joking, but the dude was half serious at the same time. For anybody who's been at the high school within the last few years knows who Major JC is. This dude was like jacked, and for a lot of people, he could be intimidating. I didn't find him intimidating, just me. I met him the first time, and I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of nervous, when I arrived in 2015. But I kind of got to know the guy just a little bit, and I'm like, oh, all right, this guy's not that bad. I mean, I can see why a student would be afraid of him, because he's not only the AD, the athletic director, but he's the dean of students. So if anybody does anything stupid, well, he's the guy who's going to grill him. And it's like, oof. Oh, good luck to you, dudes. So anyway, it was kind of reluctant, but the coach ended up shaving his beard off, and he ended up getting his haircut, just like I do. And he ended up actually looking like he had been in the military. For anybody who's seen the coach in a military outfit, he pretty much looks the part. So it kind of combed everything together, and everything was looking hunky-dory. Now he was eventually given the position. It was found out he had an English degree, and Major JC was like, dude, seriously? Like, all right. He was already coaching basketball, so him being a teacher there also as well, just having an extra presence, it just added to it. So it was like all positives from Major JC, which anybody with a brain cell would come to the same conclusion. So, yes, Intense Penguin. Yes, that is true. We have some new ones, and well, probably not so much now. So, the Luiso and Roadrunner, welcome. And the sidekick is commenting. I was afraid of him at first. Well, I mean, I could give you that. I mean, he could be a little bit, but at the same time, there's still only one person on this planet who intimidates me to this day, and it's not Major JC. Sorry. So when the coach was brought into the school, it was in a bit of a transition period due to the whole Kennedy fiasco, and started changing, and the school started really changing, and really not for the better. In the JROTC classes, they had student leaders who, would make kids causing issues do the push-ups and the laps and all that other brouhaha, which I think is completely justified. If you have the little bastards who can't behave, then, make them pay for it. Duh. So, unfortunately, with Kennedy gone, the punishments and discipline started to spiral due to new non-military people coming in and basically fucking everything up and making, people afraid to discipline for no damn reason. So in time, they started taking away more and more of the punishments, but in turn, they started making more and more rules and getting stricter with everything. They had rules, but they basically took the teacher's power away and took away the means to enforce them. Now, a great example of this was the Friday casual day. Back then, the athletes, when Kennedy was there, could wear sports jerseys or other sports attire on Fridays, to support their teams. It was something that Kennedy believed in, and he gave the students a decent sense of pride that they could display, should they wish to. It makes sense to me. And the kids absolutely loved it. They loved it. And when he was forced out, they took that away pretty much immediately, and the kids were utterly devastated, which I would be too. And I mean, the kids took it the worst because they had earned that right when Kennedy was there. And so it meant something to them. They had a sense of pride, a passion, be like, you know what? We earned this right to do this. We're going to do it. So here we are. But instead of carrying on the tradition, the high school, in its typical fashion, instated a new rule saying that there was no longer allowed, but students could wear the school's fancy sport polo. Hell, lottie freaking da. The backlash and uproar over that got to the school to the point where they abolished that rule completely, and they replaced it with students could only wear the school polo on Fridays. Now, this sucked for the coach and the girls of his basketball team, even though when he first got there were only 6 of them at the time, because they'd raised enough money from their fundraising to get nice sportswear from their team. But they weren't allowed to wear it on Fridays due to this ridiculous crackdown on the Friday wear. So, unfortunately, I wish I could say it stopped there, but lo and behold, it did not. Eventually, the head of school, the Livs, said, who was established after all this BS went down, they couldn't wear sports jackets outside when it was cold due to them not having buttons on them. They absolutely, positively had to have buttons. So, the coach said they'd have buttons for next year. He promises, saying, okay, if it's that big of a deal, then I will put buttons on it next year then. But unfortunately, the Livs had other plans and said that there would be no sports jackets allowed at all the following year. Just no, absolutely not. No. Has to be just the regular jacket only. But yeah, here's the thing though. The rifle team still got to wear their jackets. I guess due to their ability of being able to walk on water. It's my best guess. It became very obvious that military teams were shown extreme favoritism over the traditional teams of the school, which took a lot of pride out of the different programs they had. Which it makes total sense to me, because if I was given that right and all of a sudden it just, yeah, well, that was then and this is now, so we're not going to do that anymore. You guys earned the right, but just, no, we're not going to do it. You have to wear the regular school stuff. You bet your ass I'd be pissed off. Like, come on. Like, I earned this, man. So it just really blew my mind reading that. I'm like, wow, I can sympathize with the kids there who went absolutely ballistic. I really can. Anyone from that era, that stretch of time who was there, who happens to hear this, trust me, I sympathize with you. Sucks. What's new? Has made a bad decision. What's the new? The school had bad decisions leading to uproar. Oh yeah, and then some. It gets worse. Intense penguins. Stick around. You'll hear more. Trust me. Now, during the coach's first year, they operated under block scheduling, which was fantastic for anyone who's gone through it. For those of you who've been living under a rock and don't understand the difference, block scheduling is you get one set of classes for one semester, and then when that semester's over, you switch over and get another one. Like I said, fabulous, because if you get a class that sucks, you don't have it for the entire year. You just have it for the one semester. Then it's over, done with, bye-bye. Love it. So the school was making more and more rules that people could not keep up with, and it was making the job of teaching the kids way more stressful and difficult than what it should have been. The coach decided to leave the teaching job December of 2014, but he still wanted to continue coaching the basketball team despite, not really getting paid for it. Now, Major JC thought he was insane for it, but truth be told, the coach didn't really give a rat's ass. He was passionate about his team, which anybody who knows him and has seen him on the court or in practices or whatever knows this for a fact. They know it as gospel. And still, even though they only had 6 people on his team, he was granted that request. Now, eventually, he started to miss, teaching and interacting with the kids and everything. So he reached out to Bo Truckle with an emotional email about getting another teaching position, even though there were really no positions at the time. He ended up giving false hope about a position, and he was passed over for someone else who, was undoubtedly unqualified for the job. What he wound up doing is becoming a sub for the 2015-2016 school year, so he could keep his foot in the door, which, ultimately would pay off eventually. So here we are, summer of 2015 now. The board, which is still being led by the Crow, decided to go through a restructuring period, restructure the administration for the schools. Now, at this time, the middle school had been established, and it was really struggling to get off the ground. I mean, anybody who was there will tell you. I heard some of the stories that they didn't know up was down, like what was left, what was right, what was up, what was down, whatever. Nobody knew anything. Now, the middle school at that time was being led by a dude named Eddie, somebody who I never got to meet. Unfortunately, in a very quickly put together meeting of June of that year, they made the ultimate decision to restructure the chain of command, which that's a kind of a contradiction in terms. When they did that, it ended up terminating Eddie's position after after the special meeting, and they blamed it on the reconstruction of the administration, and that it wasn't because of poor job performance. The Crow ended up commenting when asked about news outlets about it, saying, it was the restructuring that did all of this. The new management structure calls for one head of school, Bo Truckle, to oversee the high school and the middle school. Each campus would have 2 assistant heads of school, and which is just complete madness for anybody who knows how a school is run. Dan Kennedy actually expressed concern over their decision to restructure and said that management was going to be spread out too thin for it. I mean, he'd only been in the business, 30, 40 years, but hey, what does he know? So, him saying something, I'm sure people were like, members of the board were like, oh, what's he doing? Not saying something, but it makes sense, considering he created the damn school in the first place. The meeting and the sacking of Eddie, wasn't the only thing that really upset the parentals who were in the loop at that time. The other thing that they weren't happy about was that the meeting wasn't exactly even properly noticed in the Florida open government laws. From what I've gathered, you must give notice of such a meeting at least 7 days in advance, with the only exceptions really being in dire and extreme circumstances. Can local boards hold a meeting that quickly? I would assume it would include emergencies. Like if, God forbid, there's a school shooting there, or if there's a natural disaster, given that area, if a hurricane came through and wiped the place out, tornado came through, whatever. That would be an extreme circumstance. So, of course, that didn't happen. the pinheads of the board only gave 44 hours notice. That's just shy of 2 days. Freaking dumbasses, you know? And the thing about it is that, the parents were outraged, of course, that they weren't informed. So they formed, a lot of the parents who were not really agreeing with any of this, they decided to form the Concerned Parents of the Middle School to try and combat the decision by the board and get it overturned, the sacking of Eddie, who had been the head of school for the middle school for a year and a half. Now, the really messed up part about this is that they kept themselves unidentified due to them being worried that the school would snub their kids. They were afraid there would be, retaliation from the school on their kids. Now, when you have a concern like that about a school, surely someone would have said, okay, there is something seriously messed up with this place. Like, honest to God, what is going on if they have parents that are actually worried about this? Like, my God, what is wrong with them? Absolutely and utterly horrible. So it was just absolutely and utterly insane. And all of this had just I arrived about 2 months after all this went down. I didn't really know anything about it until just recently. So it kind of blew my mind reading a lot of this. It just made me kind of laugh and giggle to myself like, wow, just the freaking idiot, just how idiotic these people are. Oof. So I got there summer of 2015. I moved down to the area, and I ended up working at a Whole Foods / vitamin supplement store for that first year, while being an assistant coach for the coach himself. And we had some pretty good times with the team. It was pretty good. The team nearly and just about it did double in size that second year, which was fan-freaking-tastic. Unfortunately, this is kind of like around the time when we kind of started having some, issues. Couple things. We were being not really, I don't want to say jostled, but, Major JC was checking everything and was second guessing every decision that was being made and everything that we wanted to do. The plans that the coach had, Major JC would make a big deal about it. And it's just, at the beginning, it was kind of small stuff. It's like, dude, come on. And unfortunately, one of the, after our first, team was formed, there was a player who didn't exactly make the cut, but back then, me being me, I talked to her because I saw how upset she was, and I convinced her to stay. I was like, stay in a managerial type of position, learn stuff. You can come to the practices. You can participate in the practices, build your skill up. So by the time a year from now comes around, you'll be ready to go and say, all right, let's do this. I got this. And you'll know what's going on. So she agreed. And after like the first 2 practices, she didn't show up. But then right around the 3rd or the 4th one, she did, surprising me. I'm like, wow, I thought she was gone for good. But, and unfortunately for us, that would end up kind of backfiring on us in a small way, or not a small way, but we wouldn't have expected it, at least for a while anyway. We didn't suspect anything. So, but at the same time, I don't really blame myself for that. And I'm sure the coach doesn't blame myself for that either. At least I hope he doesn't. So anyway, there are some small things, there were some players who would come to us, with trouble getting home from the practices. Now, what the coach ended up doing is his very first year coaching the team, there was one player who he gave rides to, which, nothing horrendous or anything. They mostly talked about all the basketball stuff in the team because the coach before him, his predecessor, did the exact same thing all the damn time. And so it just kind of carried over into the next thing. So, no big deal, no whatever. And, the two formed a rapport, which was good because she was there quite a bit and she knew how things had been in the very beginning. So she could kind of give the coach some input like, okay, this didn't work. This is what we did, and so on and so forth. And so that gave the coach kind of an advantage to kind of get his own program up and running, which by God, he did. He did indeed. So anyway, the 2015-2016 season, we saw a lot of gains. Unfortunately, I wasn't at a lot of the practices because doing the retail gig, I ended up showing up to a lot of the practices late and missed quite a bit of it. And so, but a lot of the games I was able to get to. Some of them I had to, drive and burn a lot of fuel to get there, but you better believe that I did. We won the very first district game ever in the program's history. We beat the boys. The boys couldn't do it. We made it to, the playoffs, lost in the first round, but hey, we made progress that year and it was huge. It was magnificent. And so 2016-2017 season rolls around. And again, our team is roughly about the same size, maybe a little smaller, and we make even bigger gains. We win more district games, and that was the year we won the very first playoff game ever in the program's history. Fan-freaking-tastic. I mean, the program is taking off, and we're doing things that not even the boys have managed to do. No offense, Sidekick, if you're still out there. We're doing phenomenal. It's better than anybody would have ever have expected 2 years prior to that. The season before that, they'd be like, oh, hell no. There is absolutely no way this is going to happen. Guess what? Plot twist. So, and unbeknownst to me until later on, behind the scenes, there was the Livs, who was, the head of the high school, who didn't really like the coach all that much. And there had been some attempts to try and, maybe get him removed from the coaching position. But luckily for us, Major JC was there and he was able to kind of run blocker and be like, are you out of your freaking mind? He hasn't done anything wrong. And if anything, any allegation was made, he looked into it deeply. And when he came up with nothing, he presented it and was like, yeah, we have nothing. This is bogus. You're full of crap. And it was finally let go, which it goes back to what I've said in episodes before. If you're in a place that has weak management and administration, you're doomed if anything comes up for you, because they will not look into it. They will just you'll be left with nothing more to do than sailing down the river. Now, before the ugliness of fall of 2017, it is in this time period where the new athletic director who's there now, the Mays, was hired through the Livs. Now, the two of them were super, 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 super close. So, K-Mad, welcome. The two of them were super close. And so, of course, the Mays was a shoo-in. Absolutely. Oh, yeah, there'll be something here. Yeah, whatever. So she gets there, and there was a job that she wanted. Job of the self-defense instructor, Soki. Yet another dude who I don't know, never got a chance to meet. She wanted his job, self-defense instructor. And turns out this dude was, in fact, the former bodyguard of comedian Eddie Murphy. So I'm like, I found that out. I'm like, whoa. All right. I bet that dude's got some crazy stories. I would love to kind of, chill with him and hear what he's got to say. But of course, he eventually was forced out too. And the Mays took over his job and got teaching self-defense, which I hear is a bit of a joke, because when she first took over and she started doing the classes, at one of the Frosh orientations, because a lot of the organizations, they would just be there, give out, if they have pamphlets, they would do that, give any information to the kids who wanted to know about it, would talk to them, so on and so forth, yada, 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 exchange numbers, emails, whatever. Oh no. What the Mays did is she wanted to have a presentation. Davis, welcome. Fashionably late, but hey, I'm happy to have you here. Excellent. So the Mays wanted to have a presentation, and my understanding of the presentation is that, oh my God, it was just an absolute and utter train wreck. Absolute utter train wreck. So it did a disservice to, the kids participating, and it's okay, Davis, don't worry about it. And it did a disservice just to everybody, and all the school groups are probably looking like, what the hell was that? And so it just, it was not good. So that didn't really bode well, and that should have told people something like, she just got here and all of this is happening. Utter dumpster fire. So, okay. Now, this is a part that I told you guys I really wasn't going to touch too much on. But fall of 2017 is when things really started spiraling. Just as the basketball season was getting underway, the AD, Major JC, ended up resigning, and he went to a different school, Better Things. So who gets bumped up to AD? The Mays, who at this point had an absolute and utter dislike and distaste for the coach, and most likely myself due to my association with him. So just to kind of give you guys a brief note about what happened, if you didn't watch episode End of an Era Military School Part 1, this is what happened. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Basically, there was a call made on one of our away games that just absolutely made no sense. We contested it. The dude said, yeah, we're full of crap. We brought it up to the Mays' attention because she coaches, the officials and officiating, which that's kind of a joke. And so we brought it up to her, said, hey, what about this? And she explained it. We're like, all right, cool. We have a weapon for next time. Happened about 2 weeks later. We brought her name up. We said, hey, she said, and this guy was like, no. And the play didn't go to overturned. Well, come to find out, this referee absolutely hated the Mays. And when they were at an officiating meeting, she was trying to get a seat on the officiating board, get herself higher up. This referee stood up and said, I don't think she should be appointed. She's giving coaches false information, telling them absolutely the wrong things. So no, she should not be appointed. So she wasn't. And she held a grudge against the coach for that. And that, combined with the Livs, is just natural dislike for him. It just made the perfect storm. So as soon as Major JC vacated, they decided to pull the plug on the coach. And they pulled the plug on him, and that was that. Now, a really interesting thing that I discovered was, and that was made known to me recently, was that after that, there were faculty and staff members at the high school who approached the Livs and asked her, why did she do that to him? And she basically started going off, telling him about the illegal things that he'd done, and he was a relationship with a student that was too far, and just basically berating him. And it's actually pretty illegal to do that, to fire somebody for it and then publicly just humiliate them like that and explain what happened. But she publicly did it. So it was, highly illegal what she did. And so he tried to appeal the decision, but they just didn't want to hear it. They refused it, which, again, not really, it's not really legal to do that. And they just wanted to get rid of him. So yeah, no, we're not gonna really listen to you. And now the crazy thing is, right after he was let go that season, I went there about a few days after the coach was sacked to inquire about taking the team over, because I wanted to keep our momentum going. because what we had was special and we were just rocking it. And, of course, I sent an email to her. She didn't answer me. And so I went to the school and got to the practice that they were having there. And she, without explaining to me first what was happening, without telling me anything, she introduced the new head coach and assistant coach right in front of me. I'm like, oh, like that. Splendid. She did that, and then she talked to me. And she said that there was no way I could take over. They were taking the team in a whole new direction. I'm like, yeah, I bet you are. So anyway, then I inquired about if we could, still go and support the girls and everything. We were told yes, which you guys already know all that story. Ended up not being true, and other allegations were made. But shortly after the coach was let go, our top player, our coach was still in contact with her for a little while. And, they just texted back and forth, and it was mostly stuff about the team, how the team was doing, like how her basketball was going, and just, stuff like that. It was actually legit because, the coach was concerned, as was I. I would get, updates through him. And lo and behold, the Mays, probably at the urging of Bo Truckle and the Livs, pulled her into the office, the PE office, and tried to squeeze her for damning evidence and information to destroy the coach once and for all, to just completely and utterly bury him, which, again, illegal. And she was interrogated for quite a time, and the Mays finally just started yelling and screaming at her about it, and then demanded her phone. And she was like, no, are you out of your mind? And she was like threatened, but she was afraid of being suspended and having anything happen to her, like as far as the team goes. So she grudgingly handed it over, which, again, demanding something like that of a student without probable cause or without just going through the police or anything like that is illegal. So again, the Mays doing something illegal. Wow. Gee, who would have thought? And she went through her entire phone and her text messages with the coach, looking purposefully for something to bury him with, but there was nothing. As we had said the entire time, there was absolutely, positively nothing. So hearing that, if I had known about that after the fact, I mean, there's barely anything I could have done, but I saw her a few times when I was coaching the soccer team at the middle school. And so if I'd have known that, I would have given her the most scathing look that I could have given, which it wouldn't have done shit. I mean, let's be honest. But still, it kind of would have conveyed, be like, yeah, I know what you did. So, of course, as you all know, shortly after this happened, in February of 2018, the witch hunt switched gears and they came after me. It just spiraled even further. There were allegations made about me that weren't completely true. And there were allegations about the coach that were made that were completely untrue. Again, the Carm syndrome coming into effect here. Allegation was made that he was having an inappropriate relationship with one of the players. Bullshit, because I was with him the entire time. Nothing like that happened whatsoever. And the other assistant coach that was there, the sidekick, he would confirm it too. I mean, it's definitely something that I would bet my life on, because I know that it didn't happen, because I was with him the entire time. There was nothing there. And they were just desperate to get rid of him, get rid of us. And so, but apparently an anonymous letter, I say anonymous, quote unquote, air quotes, anonymous letter was written and submitted saying, oh, he's having an inappropriate relationship. He met with her, he's had dinner with her and doing all this other stuff. Yeah, he was meeting with her, but it was with her family. One of the times her aunt was with her, her aunt and uncle was with her. And then another time it was her dad and her sister. And they were talking about college prospects. You assholes, come on. He's doing this to try and get her to play college ball, which she is, might I add. She's the second college player that he produced during his tenure there. And yet, oh no, this dude's a bad person. We got to get rid of him. And the coach who took over for him, she couldn't coach her way out of a paper bag. She completely and utterly destroyed everything that we had built and held dear to us for the team. And she just, in one season, she obliterated it all. And I caught a little bit of her talking to the players when she was introduced right in front of me. And one of the things that stood out to me, she said, "Now we're going to have fun." And I almost did this. I almost yelled at her and said, "Really? Because they haven't been having fun before?" But again, no good would have come from it. So, yeah, they had fun all right. Didn't win nearly as many games. And that's right, sidekick. Fun. And they got decimated quite a bit. And not to mention our senior player, the star player who did go to college to play basketball. The senior night, her very last game, they took her out the last, 8 to 10 minutes of the game, and they kept her out the whole rest of the time, which was stupid because it was a night for her. So fun is losing 90% of the games in the season. Yep, that's right, sidekick. That is very, very true. So, yeah, the Carm syndrome kind of came in, which really sucks because the season that, let's see, I believe it was my second season as the assistant. It would have been the coach's third. The thing that really sucks the most was that I gave her a large majority of the rides. I always did, because for whatever reason, her mother couldn't do it. So I did. And we had a lot of good conversations. And then, the few games that we did get to go to that I got to see after we were sacked, it was like I was a complete stranger. So if I could have thrown up the middle finger, I probably would have. But, so shortly, February 2018, they decided they turned their attention to me. Luckily, I didn't. For those of you who, for whatever reason, still haven't listened to the military episode part 2, I was not fired. I left on my own power before they could find something to get to me, because ultimately what ended up happening was the beginning of the 2017-2018 school year. They ended up creating a new position, the HR supervisor. And they hired this woman out of St. Louis, Teabags. And she's the one who came after me. She was in the meeting when the coach was let go. But anyway, karma came back for her, bit her in the ass, and her job position was liquidated and she was fired. So, good for you. So I left the middle school, and I kind of left scorched earth behind me in the sense of the exit survey. Now, under the new coach that took over for us, Torrisi, it just completely spiraled. And the season after that really wasn't that much better, as far as I can tell. A lot of the girls said they had fun and everything, and I'm like, well, if they really did, and I hope that they hear this part, if they haven't closed the YouTube tap in anger already. But if some of them really did have fun, then you know what? More power to you. I'm happy for you. I really, really, truly am. I got to see the All-Star game about a month ago. I got to see Deadshot and Straighter Tot do their stuff. I was hoping to see the Samurai play, but she wasn't there. She had to work, apparently. So, but it was fun seeing them play again, even if it was just for a little while. So that was really good for me. I got to see their very last game ever. And apparently the new head coach, Torrisi, is leaving. The new head coach is her assistant coach. And it's the one who I've said before, who looks horribly, horribly misplaced. Like he shouldn't be on a basketball court. Like he should be going door to door selling Bibles, Yeah, kind of get that vibe from him. Sidekick is saying, who's Deadshot? The Berg. Because, yeah, she missed a lot, but at the same time, when she got on a roll, dude, she was hot on the court. She would start nailing them from downtown. So, it would take her a little while to get up and going. And, we kind of would start face palming each other after a while. But, she had some good spectacular shots. You got to give her that. I give her that credit. So it all completely spiraled. And if you guys haven't noticed yet, there is a recurring theme to all of this where they forcibly force somebody out who is absolutely loved by students, by the parents, and who go way above and beyond the call to make sure that they do the absolute best job and that the students are the ones who benefit the absolute most. They can't have that. And it's very apparent now, because unfortunately the teachers at the school are starting to suffer as well. Recently, the school has lost 4 out of 5 of its Teacher of the Year recipients, because they're just tired of all the bullshit. They're running for cover and they're saying, all right, the hell with this. We're getting out of here. And they get out the very first chance that they get. And the latest thing was with the Save Joe Franklin campaign. You have him, who he's beloved by everybody and their mothers, just like Kennedy. But, he's being let go. And there's that list that I've mentioned before of the teachers that are being let go. One of them, who was actually like a real life rocket scientist, this dude's a genius. They're getting rid of him, and they're hiring teachers that are like 24, 25, and 27 years of age who have no experience and no idea what the hell they're doing whatsoever. Just so, for budget purposes, we don't have to worry about retirement. Well, good for you, Skeech. So it's a recurring role that unfortunately will not dissipate. It absolutely will not dissipate. And it started with Dan Kennedy, and it's going to go until finally somebody has the common sense to get rid of Bo Truckle, get her out of there, because anything that the board tells her to do, she does. She questions nothing. She just does it. And to be perfectly frank, you need to get rid of the whole board as well. Like, get rid of them and replace every single one of them and put them underneath Sarasota County. Make them answer to the county for what they do, their decisions, and have the Sarasota School Board review everything before a decision is made. Because these idiots can't do it by themselves. They don't have a damn clue. Administration in both schools needs to be completely overhauled, like absolutely horribly. And the reason I say that is because some of the dirt stories that I've got, things that happen behind the scenes that nobody has any idea about. Let's see. Hold on. Sidekick real quick. I'm trying to keep up with the nicknames. Sorry, bro. I'm trying to be as, descriptive as I possibly can. So if you get stuck, no problem, man. Just let me know. Send a question through the chat. I'll answer it. So probably the first dirt story that I have is the former AD of the middle school. There was a whole saga with him that I'm kind of scratching my head over, like, what the hell? It started quite literally right before they came after me. There was a meme made about him, which honestly, when I saw it, I nearly spit water all over the place. I'm like, damn, that was funny. I thought it was, but at the same time, the boundary of taste was kind of in the very gray area. And the person who made it, I don't blame him in the slightest bit, because it wasn't trying to be malicious or anything like that at all. I mean, if they were like purposefully trying to, just trying to be funny, be a jokester, then, fine. So be it. Do it. Don't be ridiculous. Then go for it, So, and of course, there could be the argument, well, the thing about good taste and da 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 da. Oh, shut up. So, because I looked it over and I kind of chuckled. I'm like, but apparently it wasn't received very well at all. And it blew up into this complete shitstorm. And the student who was involved, had I known this at the time, I would have dived in head first and been on the defensive and said, look, come on, let's be reasonable here. We're supposed to be reasonable adults here. Let's be reasonable. Come on. And so, of course, I didn't know. And I wish I had. But anyway, what ended up happening was, from what I understand, this student was backed into a corner, and so was her parent. And they were basically forced into basically withdrawing her and sending her somewhere else to avoid legal action. And it's like, wow, way to throw an ultimatum there. And again, had I known this, my anger might have gotten the best of me. It really would have, because the student who did it, I know her, and yeah, you're damn right I would have defended her. Being like, come on, this is stupid. But, again, so, like I said, she was backed into a corner and not given a choice. She was forced, which sound familiar. So she departed, and apparently that wasn't the only thing that happened. This dude, I mean, I have nothing personal against him. Well, with the exception of the one thing, but other than that, I mean, he really never really did anything to me, but it made me raise my eyebrows and ask a lot of questions like, dude, don't you have a class right now? Because it seemed like every single time I turned a corner, there he was. He was either walking outside or walking down the hallway or sitting up in the head of school's office. I'm like, how is he getting away with this? And during the end of one of the days, I asked him, I was like, what's going on, man? Like, don't you have a class right now? A 7th period? And I was told that was allotted to him to do AD stuff. I looked at him with this look on my face. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you're at a middle school. How much AD stuff could there be? And of course, he just passed it off, why? So I'm like, all right, dude, whatever. I just rolled my eyes. I just kept going. I'm like, oh, all right. I don't really get it. But anyway, he was, there was something that came up with him. Another student was saying like he had been like 1 foot inside the girls' locker room or something like that. And he had been like taking pictures or something. I didn't really get the full story, but it was something along those lines. So yeah, needless to say, he gone. And unfortunately, he played a role in the coach not really coming back to the middle school, because it was mentioned that he spent a lot of time on his little computer, his little laptop that he had. And, with the 2 computers that were in the office in the gym completely tied up, like, well, yeah, he's going to take attendance on it. So what? Whoop-de freaking do. So, he just was like, all right, fine. So he kept using it for attendance and stuff. But, he just said that, well, oh my God, you're just on the computer way too much. You're not really paying attention. You're not really doing stuff with the kids. It's like, well, you got this guy who's walking around and not really doing, half of his classes. So, like, where's this coming from? Like, what the hell? So, just made absolutely no sense whatsoever with that. And it just, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And the kids, I didn't really notice this until after I left and I thought about it. Whenever I would sub for 8th, they were like, wait a second. There's actually someone here? What? And I'm pretty sure I had a student ask me that. Like, wait. There's actually somebody physically here? Like, dude, it's insane. Like, well, yeah. Yeah, there's someone here. So if that's not a big red flag, I don't know what is. So yeah, that kind of goes in with the bogus claims of, why the coach wasn't invited back. It was stupid stuff like that he was doing with his class, that he wasn't really participating the way that he should have been, that he was spending too much time on his computer and all this other crap. Which, there were a few times when I went back there but he was wrapping up attendance. And one of the times he put in a grade for a summative that they just did. And the whole rest of the time, he was with the other PE coach observing them and giving instruction when needed. Because that was another thing that was mentioned, was that he wasn't getting involved and instructing the kids as he should have been. Like, what do you want him to do? Like, be over their shoulders the entire time and micromanaging the whole thing? Like, come on, what more do you want from the guy? So it's insane. And, there's a teacher there. She's still there as far as I know. And this isn't a totally uncommon thing. There's a few of them that do this. They bounce back and forth. They have classes at the high school. They have classes at the middle school, so on and so forth. They travel back and forth each and every day. Me personally, that would drive me crazy. And I'm like, okay, I'm looking at my gas tank being like, okay, you're giving me a decent stipend every month for the fuel that I'm burning for you. But then again, I'm an ass. So that's me. But this one in particular, didn't really have too much control over the classes. Most of the time, it was absolute, utter chaos. And you could definitely tell that the leadership there was just non-existent whatsoever. And I mean, it's bad when there's a day when the kids are just absolutely nuts and you have teachers stopping what they're doing, sticking their heads out the door and going, what in the hell is going on? And it's just bad when you have other teachers that are out there in the quad doing that. I'm talking about the 2017-2018 school year, because the kids were outside a bit and the noise level was just, oh my God, I'm pretty sure anybody within a 5 to 10 mile radius could hear what was happening in that quad. So, but you have that much lack of control. The kids are going nuts. Even members of the front office would come back and tell them to quiet down, get settled. And I was like, how do you still have a job? Like, I don't get it. And yet guys like the coach and I, we're just crucified and, oh my God, they're terrible people. We can't have them. Oh, they're terrible people. And it's funny because kind of going back to the basketball thing, the girls were actually told to have no contact with the coach whatsoever, because just how horrible he was, and he started a petition at an away game to try to get his position back, and it's like, bullshit. No, he didn't. And they were told not to have contact with him, and so like, I can understand, the main player, she kind of hunkered down and was like, yeah, and blocked him on all social media and stuff. Kind of luckily, I didn't fall into that category, although I'm pretty sure I wasn't too far behind him. Some of them kind of talked to me, but very, very scarcely, only if I initiated it. But I would kind of give updates as they came in. But we were at an away game at Mooney, and the coach got talking to the main player, and so did I. And Teresi, being the dumbass that she is, kept trying to pull Haley away, be like, no, come on, Haley, it's time to go, come on. And she was just like, oh no, get away from me, like whatever. And that became even more prominent when she scored her 1,000th point. After that, she was just like, get this. And she, reestablished the social media connection with him and started talking to him, because it happened again. And also with the assistant coach was like, trying to like push her away. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, get off me, get away from me. And it was like, oh yes, she's back finally. But, I understand. And so does the coach, because she had to protect her own skin. So, just more of this false crap. And it's like, wait a second. You have us guys who are like dedicated to what we do, and we do it to the absolute best of our abilities. And yet we lose our position and get forced out, just like Dan Kennedy, just like Daughtry, Franklin, Eddie, all of these dudes, all these people. And yet, you have these other people that are spreading false things and not great at their job whatsoever, and yet they get to stay. Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me. So when I got hired, there was this guy who took over the ISS position, Evans. And I'm not going to lie, my first impression of him, I met him in a group with a bunch of new hires. He kind of came across as like a goofy guy. And especially when we kind of started making the incoming sixth grader orientation flyers and their pamphlets and folders and all that stuff. He kind of got talking and pulled up a comedian on his phone who started dropping like F-bombs immediately. And like, okay, this guy's, he's pretty interesting. So, but I'm like, you know what? I can see myself getting along with him. If I get into like a bind or something, I'm pretty sure he'd be all right to talk to. So on and on and on and on. So first week of school gets done, and we all meet at what's the name of that place? Gecko's. It's on the corner of Fruitville and Honore. And we'll all meet there. First week, yay, we survived. Woohoo! Yay, good job, new hires. You're pretty much broken in. Yeehaw! And so he's there, and he tells this story about how his car got totaled. And I was like, what? I go, did this happen recently? He's like, yeah. He goes, happened a few days ago. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. He goes, that's why I kind of look sore. I'm a little banged up. Because why the very first day of school, I was very late. He's like, the Uber sucked. I was like, well, dude, what happened? He was coming off of a like one of those loop-de-loop exit ramps, and his car slid off the ramp and ended up rolling. Well, I'm like, geez, man. I'm like, it just rolled like that? Like, what happened? I'm thinking like something mechanical, me being me, something happened with the car. The car gave out on him. No. He proceeds to tell me, and everybody else who was listening, that he was drunk. That he was drunk and that he ended up flipping, and he was really glad that the cops didn't give him a breathalyzer because he would have been really screwed. I'm sitting there like, okay, did that just happen? And I kind of caught the eye of some of the others, and we were kind of on the same webpage, like, dude, why are you blurting that out? Like, why are you saying that out loud? I mean, just me personally, that's something I would keep to myself. I wouldn't exactly be in a hurry to advertise that. So I'm like, oof. And I looked at the coach and he looked at me. We're like, all right, on that note, I think we're just going to go now. And that wasn't the only thing. I mean, like I said, he was an all right guy. He didn't do anything to me. And, despite the fact that it didn't really work that well, he did try with the ISS kids to kind of do something different. Take them out and about on the campus, have them pick up the trash and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, well, all right, you're trying. The method may not be, there. The execution may not be that great, but you're trying, man. So, but that wasn't the only thing that he did. There was a comment that was made to him because he was a Army veteran. And he was asked at one point during the year, I think it was like kind of towards the end of the year, why don't you try to go to the high school? Why don't you go to the high school and, do your stuff there? Because, the school's made up of mostly veterans, even though that number has decreased in recent years, of course, after Kennedy left. And his response was, well, he goes, the way the girls look there, man, I don't know if I trust myself. I don't think that's probably one of the times I have face palmed the hardest. And again, I I was asking the question in my head, like, why would you say that? I mean, I get it if you were, kidding, you were trying to be joking about it, but at the same time, for us male teachers, especially in this climate now, that's not a joke you want to mention. If you're going to say something like that and you just absolutely feel the urge to do so, say it to yourself, man. Don't throw the ammunition out there for somebody else to pick up and use on you. Keep it to yourself. It's something he should have done, but I was like, God almighty. If I'd have been there and heard that, I would have said that to him, but I would have done it obviously kind of in a nice way, because like I said, crazy as it may sound to some of you, I like the guy. I thought he was all right. He talked to me about some stuff and, he leveled with me and he helped me out in the mornings quite a bit. So I liked him. I thought he was all right. Bit goofy, bit eccentric, but, he was all right. The way that he left, I don't really know what happened. I just know that there were some people there that were nervous to be around him, especially if they were alone. And his departure, he thought it was absolute BS. And I'm sure they did some like blackmail, the coach Kennedy style and forced him out. And he got into a tirade. He was just absolutely insane in the conference room. So, but eventually he left, fizzled out, and I haven't been in contact with him for a while, but I'm going to find out how he's doing and, see what's going down in the land of Captain America. So now, interesting thing was the first year that the coach and I were there, there was a math teacher who was there, a little bit on the crazy side. And if there's any of the former pupils that we had there that were in 6th grade that year, they probably already know exactly who I'm speaking of. She kind of got to be known as the Red Bull Queen. And I'm sure if she heard that, she wouldn't be, arguing about it. She'd be like, you're damn right. So, because, I got her a lot of them, which, funny enough, a little bit of a story about the Red Bull. Of course, she had him out in front of God and everybody the beginning of the year and so on. But about halfway through the second semester, the second assistant head of school from the middle school, who was, trying to spearhead the IB crap and not really knowing what exactly was going on, pulled her into her office and basically had a showdown with her about how, no, you can't have Red Bull. You can't drink Red Bulls at all on campus. Absolutely not. No. And it was like, well, all right, well, all these teachers have like Starbucks and stuff. So, and there was like a big thing about the Starbucks cups as well, and Dunkin' Donuts and all this crap. But other teachers brought all that stuff in all the time, me being one of them. And so, funny enough, what ended up happening is one of the military studies teachers who isn't there anymore, he ended up kind of making a Sharpie label saying non-Red Bull. This is absolutely not Red Bull whatsoever. It's completely 100% water or something stupid like that. Made the label, and she was able to slip it over the Red Bull cans, and it fit perfectly. And I thought it was hysterical. I'm like, damn, this is funny. And at the same time, I'm like, you're kind of pathetic. And she's like, why? I said, because you're going to this great of length to drink a freaking Red Bull. Let that sink in for a moment. And of course, the only retort that she ever had was, shut up. I'm like, thank you for telling me I'm right. But what I didn't know was until much later, that there was a relationship with her and somebody very high up. And when you hear something like that, you tend to kind of cringe, like you've just been shown kryptonite. Like, no, because when things like that come about, that's when shit gets complicated. very, very quickly and in the most uncomfortable way imaginable. And I mean, I've prized myself on the expression of, well, it's only uncomfortable if you make it uncomfortable. This is one of those things where it's kind of out of your hands. It's just uncomfortable no matter what the hell you do. Oof. It just absolutely is insane. So you tend to not want to touch one of that, but I'm sure everybody and their mother knew about it right then. But yeah, her and the head of school, oof. Yeah. So, but anyway, I mean, she was all right. You know, she was kind of nuts and kind of out there, but from what I understand, the majority of the kids loved her. They loved her and her crazy antics, and a couple of them thought her and I were an item and were engaged at one point. So I was like, yeah, sorry, not in a million years. Don't think so. Now, kind of a crazy little side story here. The coach kind of filled me in on this one. There was a pupil who went to school at the high school. It was during the 2016-2017 school year. She ended up also working for the Wing House in downtown Sarasota. Now, she was very curvy, very pretty, and somebody who you would definitely notice. You know, kind of the ones who would be snapping necks left and right, boys looking at going, damn. Yeah, one of those. You know, it's crazy because, you know, at the schools, you have the uniforms, and if you saw her at the high school, you would never imagine that it was her, just because of how radical the change is. Now, the coach got to know her through his subbing and, you know, through her friends during his time, during the 15 to 16 year, because he subbed quite a bit at the high school. When he tried to come back, you know, obviously, like I said earlier, he couldn't, so he started subbing at the high school to kind of keep his foot in the door, which eventually paved the way for him to get the position at the middle school with me. So anyway, got to know her through his subbing and through her friends or whatever. Now, there was a rumor that started going around that one of the coaches at the high school was having an affair with her. Now, the coach at that time was having a really bad year, just coaching in general. The team wasn't doing that great, and things just weren't going all that well. It was one of those things where he just suddenly quit out of nowhere and nobody knew why. She graduated high school and eventually she decided to get into porn, which she is on a few of the websites. No, I have not looked. Don't you ask. You freaking pervs. She did that for about a year and a half out in LA. And eventually she made her way back to Sarasota to just kind of try and live a normal life. And, you know, it's not believed that she is with that high school coach now. The coach sees her sometimes. And recently it was kind of funny about like maybe a couple months ago. Or not a couple months ago, but during the all of last year, the coach was doing a 365-day workout challenge where he was going to be at the gym every single day. And, you know, him and this girl were, you know, they followed each other on Instagram or whatever, no big deal. And one of the times, it was like around day 238 or something like that. And she posted on her story saying, you know, what kind of loser takes pics of himself at the gym every single day? And he's sitting there like, wait a second, is she like talking about me? So he messaged her being like, so yeah, you posted this, like, what's that all about? And she was, you know, talking about somebody else that she had met who was trying to like get in her pants and all this other stuff. So they kind of had a good laugh about it. So it wasn't really any that big of a deal with him per se. So, just kind of funny one there. Now, kind of going back to the teacher departures recently, for those of you who haven't, you know, listened to my show recently or aren't exactly in the loop of things that have been going on, there's a list of teachers who are on the chopping block. One who he's not a teacher, but he's like the head. He's like the head custodial there at the high school. Joe Franklin, great guy. Captain Carver, who I know personally, and he's a great coach. Great science teacher. Kids absolutely love him, which actually recently happened as of a few days ago. There was an opening for the athletic director at Mooney, and Carver was texted about it, and he applied for both positions of athletic director and the coach, but he didn't get the AD one. So according to one of my dear and trusted sources, he's not really allowed to say where he's going until the last day of school, but he's kind of hinted at where he's going. So there might be a good chance he's going to Mooney, but he's told his students so far that he already has another destination that's possibly local. So it's looking like he may land on his feet, which, if any, he deserves it. Because like I said, he's a great guy. Some of the other names are Captain Mackey, Major Wolfgang, yet another one who I know personally. Captain Goodman, who is the, pretty much the rocket scientist, and he used to work for NASA. So he's basically a genius, and the high school is stupidly getting rid of him for God only knows why. You have Sergeant Major Daly. You have the other, you have Major JC, but you have his brother, the other Collis. Then you have Captain Davis. And from what I'm told, there may be a few others that are going to be added at some point. Hopefully I'll find out something before the school year ends, or just as it ends, we'll get some new information about that. But I can, in fact, confirm that there is another teacher who is leaving the school, but she is leaving on her own power, her own terms, because she's had enough of all the garbage, and it is confirmed. She was there. She started there way before the coach's time. And like I said, I'm very happy for her because she's getting the hell out of Dodge on her own power. She's not a teacher on the list whatsoever. So, but she's had enough. She's just bye-bye, time to go. The ship is sinking fast. Now, there's at least two people from the schools who are taking, the coach is kind of taking a course right now for complete certification. So there's two others. One from the high school mentioned the recent drama that because of the whole Joe Franklin thing, there's been a lot of posters and signs going up to save his job. There's writing in the graffiti in the bathrooms over it. With Save Joe Franklin's job, kids writing on their arms, saving and everything. And a lot of people are unhappy with the unrest that is happening on the campus right now. And administration's not really reacting on it, naturally, just because, they're a bunch of idiots. But one thing that I do know is that Bo Truckle actually sent out a pretty nasty email to, faculty members saying that if they signed the petition that they had going around, that, there'd be severe consequences for them. I'm like, yeah, you'll probably just fire them and try to replace them with some 20-year-old who doesn't know what they're doing. Which that's what it sounds like they're doing anyway. They're forcing out all the good people and bringing in all these know-nothings who just know absolutely jack shit about what they're supposed to be doing. So there's that. And, there'd be severe consequences for students who, were spreading this around and trying and all this other crap. It's like, all right, just give it up, all right? Seriously, just give it up. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions about this school, both of them, in fact, is that their kid can be sent there to be fixed. Now, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, when Kennedy left, the punishments were taken away. More rules were put in place, but there was really no means to act on them, no means to actually do something. So, the school had a really, really big issue with graffiti. And, it just pretty much showed that the school couldn't really handle them. And, there's one of the buildings on the campus is 3 stories. And, the fourth, there's a stairwell, and kids would sneak up there and just start making out and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, you're having a great school there. So, and the teacher, Goodman, who's the literal rocket scientist, would be making fun of the rules. It's like, stupid. Like, wearing you can wear the jackets outside, but when you get into the classroom, you can't wear them inside. Even if the room is like sub-zero freezing, no, you have to take the jacket off. You can't wear it inside the classroom. It's like, oh my God. It just, it makes me wonder whoever came up with that one, like what was going through their mind. But if anything, which chances are there's probably nothing, given how the state of things now, because, they're a C school, at least at the last report that I got. They're no longer an A school like they used to be. They'll change rules sometimes, and it made no sense at all. The jacket, the whole jacket thing. And sometimes they change rules just to do it. And nothing makes sense there anymore. It's a place that barely works. And honestly, I'm surprised it's lasted this long without Kennedy at the helm. Because obviously you have people that are in high positions of power now making decisions that they shouldn't be, and they're making all the wrong ones. And yet they're sitting there going, we are not a C school. Well, apparently you are. And but it just, all of it is insane to me. And, like I said, the people who have the power, they're put in the positions of power. They don't know how to properly execute it. They don't know what to do with it. They abuse it. They use it for their own little personal agenda, no matter the collateral damage that could result from it. And, one last little note that I have here about the Mays. Like I said, how she got her job. Her job was basically created by the Livs just so she could be there. She was there for a year. She ended up wanting Soki's job, being the personal defense instructor. Well, that ended up happening. She knew practically nothing about it going into it, but, they fire and get rid of the experienced expert because she wanted it. So the presentation, like I said, it was pretty much looked nothing more than like a Napoleon Dynamite comedy skit. Come to find out, her third year there, she shoved a student really, really hard, and there was almost legal action. But again, she was protected. The Livs pretty much said she stepped in and that she would be dealt with, and promised reprimands against her. And of course, nothing of the sort happened. So, it's all who you know. And if you're really tight and buddy with people in power, you're pretty much guaranteed. But the good guys, like the coach, like myself, the sidekick, all the teachers whose names I've listed, apparently we don't have a place in their world. And, we can't be seen with them, and they have to get out. We have to, get away from them and be let go and released. And we need to bring in other people who are going to conform and do what we want them to do. It makes me sick. And it really makes me wonder how many parents out there of the schools currently right now are aware of any of this. And the answer, I probably already know it, is probably next to nothing, because the school goes to so many lengths to cover things up and offer hush money. The coach, he got offered hush money. He got offered 25% of his coaching salary the year he got sacked. It was to shut him up because of what happened, and as it turns out, Teresi ended up getting 75% when it should have been flip-flopped. The coach should have gotten 75% and she should have gotten 25% because of just the horrible job that she did, and the fact that, the program that we had built up and we had this grand thing going was now in complete and utter ruin, burning rubble. So you have people who who force out the great just so that they can have their own chance to enforce their will, their dominance, and they force people out, offer them hush money, be like, all right, you're out, you're gone, bye bye, you're gonna have no influence whatsoever. But here's money, to cover your losses, and don't sue and don't go around telling people. And they come up with these stories like for Kennedy, he's going into retirement. Don't you dare. It's staggering. And I'm sure that the percentage of parents who know this is probably down in the single digits, because there's no telling how far the school would go to keep something like this quiet. I mean, I just keep waiting for the day when somebody comes along and busts it wide open and doesn't leave them with a leg to stand on, and the whole house of cards comes tumbling down. Because when it does, I'm not going to cheer. I'm not going to shoot off fireworks. I'm not going to throw streamers in the air. I'm just going to be sitting there, and my head is going to start shaking, going up and down in a yes manner. And I'm going to say, okay. And then maybe some part of my soul, or what's left of it, will be at peace. Because I, honest to God, want the house of cards to come tumbling down. I really do. Because the teachers that are actually, who are still there, who are actually good, because I know there's a few decent ones at the middle school that are still there. I want things to get better for them. I want them to be like, okay, I'm not coming into a sinking ship that's going down faster than the Titanic. Because you shouldn't feel that way going into your place of employment, especially if you're a teacher. You should not hate it. So, again, to any and all of you that are out there who feel like you need to share this info with a parental unit, make them aware, or just your friends who think the schools are just the absolute creme de la creme, it's the best place ever, do me a favor. In some way, shape, or form, wake them up, because eventually this is going to blow up, and when it does, it is going to be ugly. The backlash, the outrage, the uproar, everything is just going to be insane. And I don't want good people and good kids who actually try to make a difference and actually try to do good. I don't want them to become collateral damage when it finally happens. So, like I said, do what you can, wake them up, make them aware. Because all of this is quite literally on a countdown to destruction. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when it's going to happen. And I guarantee you, the coach, the sidekick, and myself are going to be sitting there in our chairs with our feet up. The coach, more than likely, with a kombucha. The sidekick with chocolate-covered almonds. Or peanuts. I don't know, however he's feeling. I don't know. And me, most likely, on the rare occasion, I'll have a beer in my hand and a good cigar in my mouth with my aviators on, and just watching the fireworks. And we'll look at each other, just nod, and keep on watching. Because you just got to keep living, man. Livin. So that's going to do it for me, babies. That is pretty much everything that I know up to this point. So anyway, like I said, make the people who you think should be aware, make them aware, because it needs to be known how they just sweep things under the rug and they try to force the good people out and bring in people that are just completely unqualified. But more importantly, just how they get rid of all these great individuals and how they try to just cover their tracks. It needs to stop. It really, honest to God, does. And like I said, eventually, I hope someone or something brings it down. And I'll sleep like a baby when it does. So, questions, comments, concerns, cries of outrage about tonight's episode, hit me up on the email. You guys know what it is. CyrusSoBeit@gmail.com. CyrusSoBeit@gmail.com. No spaces, no caps. Let me know, and I will answer it live. So anyway, until next time, my babies, good night.
Cease to resist, giving my goodbye. Drive my car into the ocean. You think I'm dead, but I said away. On a wave of mutilation, wave of mutilation, wave of mutilation, wave. I've kissed mermaids, rode the El Nino. Walked the sand without crustaceans. Could find my way to Mariana. On a wave of mutilation, wave of mutilation, wave of mutilation, wave, wave, wave of mutilation, wave of mutilation, wave of mutilation, wave.